Hi guys, today we're on lesson 76 for complex fractions, and the vocabulary, you've seen most of these. I'm not going to have you go necessarily to the glossary, but I'll just go through them with you. So reciprocal would be two numbers whose product is 1. So like if I had the number 3 as a fraction, that is 3 over 1. And if I multiply by its reciprocal, which is 1/3, it becomes 1. It becomes 3 over 3, which is 1. Okay, so reciprocal is two numbers whose product is 1. Numerator is always the top term in a fraction. Okay, so in a fraction we talk about the numerator. Denominator, the bottom number of the fraction. Okay, an improper fraction is where the numerator is equal to or greater than the denominator. So in this instance, 16 is the numerator, 8 is the denominator. That's an improper fraction. The top number is bigger. If it was 8 over 8, it would still be an improper fraction. And then when we use the word lowest terms, that is simplified terms. Only the common factor of the numerator and denominator is 1, okay? All right, so that means that that is as low as you can go in terms of simplifying it or reducing, okay? All right, so here we go. We're looking at complex fractions. So it's a fraction that contains one or more fractions in the numerator and the denominator. Okay, so here's some examples. All right, the first one, 3/5 divided by 2/3. Okay, so that's a fraction is the numerator and a fraction is the denominator. Here's one. We have a mixed number in the numerator and a whole number in the denominator. That's a complex fraction. We have a whole number in the numerator and a mixed number in the denominator. And then we can even use variables. We can say a over b divided by b over c. That still counts as a complex fraction. Okay. So one way to simplify a complex fraction is to multiply the complex fraction by a fraction named for 1 that makes the denominator 1. And that was confusing to me when I first read it. Normally, I'll just go back up here. Normally when we do these, you might say, oh, that's 3/5 divided by 2/3, and I know I need to KCF or keep, change, flip. So you might solve that as 3/5 times 3 over 2, and then you would solve it, okay? So that is one way. But what they're telling you is, for this first example, if I have, here's my original problem, 3/5 over 2/3, okay? If I multiply to get the bottom half to be 1, which is really what we want, we would have to multiply by its reciprocal. Well, what I do to the bottom, I do have to do to the top. I can't just randomly multiply by a reciprocal without doing the same. Now this is 3/2 over 3/2. Isn't that the same thing as like 2 over 2 or 3 over 3? It's equal to 1. Okay, that's the same on the top as it is on the bottom. So what it's saying is you can multiply, I'm going to go back up here to what it said, multiply by a fraction named for 1 that makes the denominator 1. Well, here's a fraction that is equal to 1, 3 over 2 over 3 over 2, that's 1. And at the same time, because it's reciprocal, this becomes 6 over 6, which is 1, okay? Or it cancels, it can cross cancel, and we get 1 on the bottom. All right, so that's what it's talking about. So we get 9/10 over 1, which equals 9/10. Okay, so we're going to flip over here to the other page and look at another example. Okay, so the original problem says 25 2/3 over 100. Okay, and so we know if we're going to divide fractions, we need to turn them into improper fractions. Okay, So this one looks like I did 3 times 25 plus 2. I got 77 thirds over, and I turned that into a fraction, 100 over 1. Now I need to get the bottom half, this whole bottom, to 1. I know I can do that by multiplying by its reciprocal. And I remember that what I do to the bottom of a fraction, I have to do to the top. So I multiply by 1 over 100 down here, and then in the numerator up here, I have to multiply by 1 over 100. And so what that looks like is it then becomes 77 300ths over 1, which is 77 300ths. Okay, so down here, 15 over 7 1/3. Okay, so you should be thinking you've got to reshape the problem so it looks like something you can divide. So the reshaping looks like 15 over 1 divided by 22 over 3. And I want to get this bottom number, the denominator, to look like a 1, so I have to multiply by the reciprocal, which is 3/22. What I do to the bottom, I do to the top. And I end up with 45 over 22 divided by 1. And if I were to keep going and reduce, which I do need to reduce, I get 2 1/22. Okay. So down here, this talks about a fraction. So we're going to change 83 1/3% to a fraction and simplify. Okay, so what does that look like? Well, 83 1/3% looks like this is a fraction. It's 83 1/3 over 100. We know that. And it's the same kind of problem. I make an improper fraction on the top. So I went 3 times 83 plus 1 gave me 250 over 3, divided by 100 over 1. And I go ahead and I multiply by the reciprocal of the bottom portion because I want that whole bottom half of the problem to be 1. Okay, and I get 250 over 300 divided by 1, which becomes 250 over 300, and I find a factor in that, and I end up with 5/6 after I reduce. Okay, so you're going to hit pause, and you're going to do your practice set, and I'm going to go through the practice set with you, okay, and I'm going to review all the answers. I do want to point out, I know we've done keep, change, flip, okay, so I'm going to back up the boat to this one right here. If I look at this, this is like 250 over 3 divided by 100 over 1, so I'm going to draw that, okay. It looks like, see if I can get it to work, 250 over 3 divided by 100 over 1. And I would keep, change, flip. 250 over 3 times 1/100. Okay, well that is essentially what we did on the top, okay? For this particular lesson, I want you to do the method that I'm showing you right here. On your homework, if you choose to look at a problem right here and you set it up and then you keep, change, flip, I'm fine with that as long as you're showing me your work. But for today, you're going to do this method on your practice set. Okay, so hit pause and go ahead and I'll meet you back. All right, so we're going to take a look at our practice set. Make sure, yep. Okay, so the first one, you should have copied down the problem. Changed it into the proper shape, so you get 75 halves over 100 over 1. Then we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the denominator so we can get it off the bottom. We want it to be 1 down there. Okay, and I know if I were to think about it, if I were to cross cancel, where's my pen? The 100 becomes a 1, and those cross cancel, so this whole thing becomes 1 down here. I get 75 200ths over 1, which becomes 75 200ths, but reduces to 3 over 8. Okay. All right, 12 over 5/6 looks like 12 over 1 divided by 5/6, multiply by the reciprocal on the top and the bottom. 6/5 over 6/5 is 1. I end up with 72/5 over 1, which, if I reduce, is 14 2/5 over 1, which is 14 2/5. Okay, all right, here we go. This fraction looks similar to things we've done before, 2/5 divided by 2/3, and I'm going to skip over and show you what we would normally do, or what we've done in the past. It looks like this problem, and it's blurry. There it goes. 2/5 divided by 2/3. Well, I keep change flip, keep the first fraction, change the symbol, and do the reciprocal of 2/3, which is 3/2, and I'm going to come up with this answer. So when I come back over here, same thing. I reshape it, multiply by the reciprocal. I get 6/10 over 1, which is 3/5. If you cross cancel over here, these 2's, that's fine too. Okay, so 66 2/3% is the same thing as, well, I went ahead and jumped ahead. It's the same thing as 66 2/3 over 100. It's percent. Remember, cent is 100. So I changed that 66 2/3 to an improper fraction. I put it over 100 over 1. Okay. Then we multiply by 1 over 100. I get 200 3/100 over 1, which I would reduce down to 2/3. Okay. All right, we're going to take a look at E. 8 1/3% is 8 1/3 over 100, which I change the shape, becomes 25/3 over 100 over 1. I get the denominator to turn to 1, so I multiply by the reciprocal. I get 25 3/100 over 1, which reduces to 1/12. So I am skipping a tiny step in between. What this looks like is, where'd it go? 1/12 over 1, which is the same thing as 1/12, if you're wondering how I'm jumping. Okay, 4 1/6 is 4 1/6 over 100, which changes shape to 25/6 over 100 over 1. Multiply by the reciprocal on the denominator of the denominator. I get 25 6/100 over 1, which reduces to 1/24 over 1, or 1/24. Okay, there you go. Shoot me a picture of your completed work of both notes and practice set.